criticized for anti-war. Well, one, Mr. Bernie Sanders is not having it. And it's something I want to talk about. And I'm going to show Bernie Sanders' video. Welcome to the Soapbox. I have to be honest, this is a position that have always astonished me, that somebody can be pro-war. It just always felt odd, this notion of killing massive numbers of people. Now it's often, always, at least in the context of the United States, and I would argue probably all nations, to some degree, wars of aggression are usually coded in this notion of humanitarian. We are doing this for really good reasons. These are humanitarian bombs. They have fairy dust on them, so when they fall, they don't necessarily hit as many civilians as you otherwise would think. Okay. Bernie Sanders, in a recent interview, was criticized for his anti-war positions. How odd. When I remember, I was looking over stuff about Martin Luther King. And when he came out against the Vietnam War, do you know he was attacked for that position? Everybody loves Martin Luther King now, but at the time, he was radical. And yeah, they attacked him for his anti-war position. Why is this Negro talking about these matters off the shores of the United States? He needs to deal with black issues. What Martin Luther King knew was that nothing gets done from the standpoint of domestic policy, especially if you're talking about domestic programs, expansive domestic programs, while we're spending billions, or in our case, trillions, on a war machine policing the world, or you can say enforcing a certain viewpoint across the world. The reporter from the New York Times seems comically unaware of what was taking place around the world. And I would go beyond that. It's worse than that. An American perspective of the world. What that means is the chaos and the havoc that America was wreaking on South American countries. We're not even talking about in Asian countries. South American countries, one country after the next was being toppled and destroyed. We were supporting mercenaries, kill squads, guys with machetes and guns to take down governments that we didn't particularly like. Now, when this woman is asking Bernie Sanders about being at a rally against U.S. policy, against supporting these wars, she's asking him this question in somewhat of a critical way. Were you there when they were angry about America? Yeah, I was on stage. Did you hear them say bad things about America? Miss, did you hear what I just told you? We were supporting kill squads to take down their government. I understand that, Mr. Sanders. But did they say bad things about America while you were there? It is an astonishing interview. Utterly astonishing. I don't know how you criticize a person for this. Here's the thing. We are not, nor have we ever been, a United States. And the sad truth about war that a lot of people don't necessarily like to accept, and media, because all these guys are millionaires, these guys are somewhat detached from the thing that takes place, the burden of war, for the most part, falls on the people that are fighting it, meaning the middle class and the poor, while the gains of war go towards the top 1%. Those bullets, those boats, those guns, those bombs, when those bombs explode and they blow a lot of stuff up, you get it twofold. You got to replace that bomb, and after, if you get your objective and you take down a government, you get economic opportunity afterwards. Meaning companies are going to go for oil contracts. You're going to go to rebuild the country. All of these things can be invested at that point where you get damaged capitalism on top of just the regular capitalism of, replacing the things that were blown up and destroyed. It's a business. It's a bloody, grimy business. We code it in patriotism. That's what we do. We code it in words, almost like a propaganda of sorts. So it's not the Department of Defense. It used to be the Department of War, but now it's the Department of Defense. It's a grimy business. From the standpoint of the American public, however, we need to understand this, and I'm going to repeat this because it's infinitely true. The gains of war are not shared equally. ultimately the people who are fighting those wars are putting their lives on the line and going through treacherous, horrible territory in areas that people don't want us to be in the first place, in order to affect the will of people who are going to profit magnificently off of the blood and the chaos that they're shedding. Not just shedding, causing. It's twofold. Not only are you creating havoc for the guy that you're sending over there, but you're terrorizing the communities to which you're sending them to. Not to mention the crimes that these guys commit. And, the sad part about it is the situation drives the behavior once they're there. It is just chaotic. It's mind-blowing that you attack him for this. Listen to Sanders, though. He's not accepting this as even an avenue of attack. Oh, I love this. Defiant, growling Sanders.
Recently, I've been criticized a bit because of my opposition to war and my belief that we got to do everything possible to solve international conflict without going to war. So let me be very clear. I make no apologies to anybody. That when I was a young man, before I was elected to anything, I opposed the war in Vietnam, and I know what that war did to my generation. And when I was a member of the House, I helped lead the effort against the war in Iraq, because I knew that Cheney and Bush and these other folks were lying about weapons of mass destruction.
I'm opposed to giving the president a blank check to launch a unilateral invasion and occupation of Iraq, and why I will vote against this resolution.
And that war and that vote was the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of the United States. And as a senator, I'm proud that I helped for the first time in 45 years to utilize the War Powers Act to get the United States out of an unauthorized war in Yemen. Unfortunately, after passing in the House and the Senate, Trump vetoed that legislation. And I'll tell you something, that right now, I'm going to do everything that I can to prevent a war with Iran. Because if you think the war in Iraq was a disaster, my guess is that the war in Iran would be even worse. So let's work together and prevent that war. If people want to criticize me for that, go for it, that's okay. I don't apologize to anybody. Thank you.
I personally like that. I don't apologize to anybody. I'm not going to take any shit off of you guys for having an anti-war position. It's the correct position. I was right about Vietnam. I was right about Iraq. And yes, I will be right about Iran also. Again, this is not a United States in this way. We've never been united. It's not, the stuff flows equally. The top 1% benefits magnificently. When Theresa May or when Trump bombs something, stocks go through the roof. Yes, we get to use more military equipment. We're going to have more sales. There are going to be more contracts. Yes. Watch the financial channels. The financial channels are fascinating to watch because everything, regardless of what takes place, get boiled down to who's going to profit. Astonishing. Utterly astonishing. War is a racket. War is a racket. Donald Smead, do you think Bernie has what it takes to outmaneuver the war hawks in corporate government state? So that's interesting. And I like that you asked that. And I even like that you use the term outmaneuver because to some degree, I mean, that is what we're talking about. Let's take Trump, for example. Donald Trump gets in office. Donald Trump says he wants to be more conciliatory towards Russia. He says he wants to pull out of Syria. And everybody flips out. And not just flips out. Chemical weapon strike. Out of the blue. No, we don't have evidence about it. But what does it matter? The media is reporting it as Bashar al-Assad has dropped chemical weapons. What is the president going to do? What is the president going to do? What is the president going to do? Is the president not going to do anything? Is it because he's a Russian plant and Vladimir Putin won't allow him to do anything? Oh, here we are. Now, the president launches a missile. Who needs proof? Proof doesn't matter. Now, the point I'm getting across here, sometimes there are political climates that force the behavior of the individual. I think your question is one Mr. Bernie Sanders, given the exact same situation, would he fire off a missile? I would think no. And you guys may disagree with me on this, but I strongly suspect what he would say is, I want an investigation. The reason he would say I want an investigation is because for the same reason that Republicans ignore that fact, he wants that. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. The investigation is the leeway. It's the thing that allows you to get from point A to point B with the media that's screaming about what does the president do. He'll say, I want an investigation. He knows damn well that investigation is going to take forever. And when the OPCW or whoever sends their information, there's going to be no pressure on the OPCW because the American president doesn't necessarily want to go in. He doesn't want to have conflict. I mean, the levers of power are used in different ways when the person is a different tenor in the position. If you're asking me, can you do this as an absolute? Probably not. If something happens in the Middle East where it's, I guess, credible, or at the very least made to look credible, then he may not necessarily have a choice in his behavior. And when I say not have a choice, there's always a certain latitude of choice. The question becomes, how does he navigate those waters dealing with the media that seems to be pro-war? That's a good question, man. I am not entirely sure of that answer. I mean, it doesn't seem that Bernie Sanders wants to get involved in wars. So this notion of Venezuela, Iran, that's out the window. That's off the table. It seems that he doesn't necessarily believe the war in Syria is legal. So again, that gets this context of, he's probably going to either pull out or draw down. Same thing with Yemen, or especially with Yemen. He has to pull out of Yemen because he's essentially staked a certain degree of reputation on it. Look, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders is going to be perfect on foreign policy. I am saying that it is a dramatic drawdown from the hawks and the neocons that we've been putting in that office. It's a dramatic departure. He's not getting money from weapons contractors. He's not getting money from corporations at all. So the decisions that he's making in that office are going to be more tender towards the individuals themselves. Meaning, when I say we're not in the United States, who is this bias for? Who's this bias for? Do you trust his bias going towards a top 1% or to the individuals involved? And that even goes towards issues of war. So that would be my argument. Black leadership analysis. Keep up the good work. Aw, thanks, man. Still can't sleep. Yeah, pretty much. I haven't been to bed yet. Yeah. Donald Smead. Do you think Burn? Oh, I read that one. All right, guys. I'm not going to keep this one long. I just wanted to point this out because I thought this was an interesting article because they were attacking him for something that is, I have to be honest, of all the positions that I take, of all the positions, meaning of all the things that I analyze, of all the things that I'm talking about, I am perpetually uncertain. How can you not be? It's a certain degree of dishonesty or self-delusion to believe that you should be certain on pretty much anything. Most things are going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. You're never going to know with absolute certainty what reality is. There's always a certain degree of doubt built into the analysis of it. But on issues of war, I am far more absolute. Like, I am far more resolute on those issues. Do I want to cause more chaos and suffering for individuals? No. Now, this gets into this question about being a pacifist. I don't think I'm a pacifist. If it's a situation where, I gotta be honest, I'm a sucker for war stuff. Like analyzing old footage and that type of stuff. Love it. The military tactics, I get a thrill off of it. When I hear military speech and those guys are rousing the troops on, yes, let's go punch somebody in the face. Let's go, defend America. I'm a sucker for that stuff. So I don't think I'm this, shrinking lily of sorts. But I do think there's a dramatic departure from defending your interests in the sense of defending your borders and maybe defending things, around your interests in that sense, and extending this notion of interest just to the rest of the world. I think it's different. And by the way, defending your interests also doesn't necessarily mean trying to corral the next country. Department of Defense, Department of War, call it what it is, be honest. Invade Switzerland, better chocolates, bigger banks, the Salt Lakes. I know, right? Invade Switzerland. All right, guys, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoyed the content, please consider supporting through PayPal, Patreon. If you like the content, please like the video, share, subscribe. I know I said that extraordinarily backwards, but you know what I'm getting at. Thanks all.